Welcome back, everyone, to my workshop series, Finding Your Way When You Don't Know What You're Doing. We are now in part 3, where we'll be discussing prototyping. Now, the story so far, in part 1, we talked about the equation for employment. These were the 3 essentials that we needed if we wanted a job. We needed a skill, we needed a person to recognize that we have that skill, and we need a person willing to trade that skill for money. Now, in part 2, we used mind mapping to build a list of skills we have and want to develop. Now, in this video, we will learn about a tool that will allow us to learn about a job that we think will fit our skill set. And that tool is called prototyping. Now, I'm putting a star here because I got this idea from this book called Designing Your Life by Bill Burnett and Dave Evans. These are 2 Stanford professors in the School of Design, and they took design principles and applied them to essentially designing your life. And it was a really great inspiration for me. Now, mind you, in this way that I explain prototyping, I do astray a bit from the book, so I put in my own ideas. However, I hope that I've captured the spirit of prototyping, but if you want to learn more about this idea of prototyping, please go ahead and check out this book. It's really awesome, and I can't recommend it more highly. So what is prototyping? Well, the goal for prototyping is to get reliable feedback about a product, strategy, or approach. Now, prototyping can actually help find all 3 aspects of our equation for employment. They can help either find or build on skills we already have. They can help connect us to people so that not only do they know that we have this valuable skill, but we can also connect us to people who will pay us for that skill. Prototyping allows us to sample aspects of a job. If you recall in my intro, one of my big concerns as a teenager was I was scared to commit to one plan for a very, very long time, worried that I would then be unhappy in that big plan, like, 10, 15 years down the line. Well, prototyping is kind of like the antithesis to that. Instead of trying to make a big commitment for a very long time, we're going to make a small commitment. And instead of having to hope that this job 20 years down the line will work for us, instead we are sampling now aspects about the job that we're getting into, and it'll give us enough time to either make adjustments to that job, or maybe we will realize that the job isn't for us and we can go into a different direction sooner. So prototyping helps us learn more about ourselves, not just the job. It'll help us learn about what parts of the job fit our personality and what parts don't. Prototyping shifts our perspective from mindset of only success or failure to a mindset of exploration and curiosity. Now, I knew a lot of classmates while I was at UCLA who brought in that binary mindset of success or failure. And the reason why they had that mindset was they felt that the best motivator for success was fear of failure. So if they had a rigid idea of what success looked like, they felt that they could achieve it. So I had classmates who were pre-med who already had this very strict idea of what they would be. They would become a doctor, and so they would first ace their pre-med classes, and then from their pre-med classes they were going to ace the MCATs, and then from the MCATs they were going to be the best student at the top medical school in the country. After that, they would land a prestigious residency, and then from there they would be the best doctor they could be, and they would be happy and successful. And it's an amazing plan, but are you sure that plan works for you? Are you sure that you can handle that level of commitment? And what type of doctor do you want to be? Do you want to be a great surgeon? Do you want to be a great general practitioner? Do you want to be a great pediatrician? Do you want to be a great gynecologist? Do you want to be a great oncologist? Do you want to be a doctor like Dr. Fauci and communicate to the public? Do you want to be a doctor who goes on projects with Doctors Without Borders and treat children with malaria? Have you had a chance to learn about those different ways about being a doctor? Does that fit your personality? Have you gotten feedback from people who are studying to be a doctor right now? How are they surviving? How are they coping? Are you ready to deal with the struggles that they struggled with? So instead of just thinking that, we know what our bar for success is, and if we don't hit it, we're failures. Instead, let's be curious about this whole journey of becoming a doctor, and let's explore the different experiences and how can we test if those experiences are ones that we want, or if there are adjustments within that framework that work for us. Or maybe that experience isn't for us at all, and we can change gears much earlier in the cycle. And I want to note that almost anything can be prototyped. A job, a product, an exercise routine, a rule, or even a relationship. In fact, we actually have a whole system of prototyping relationships. We call it dating, right? When you're interested in someone, you don't just ask them, hey, do you want to be in a committed relationship? No, you take them out on a date, which is basically a prototyped relationship. You say, hey, can I take you out for ice cream so I can see if I can enjoy spending long periods of time with you, right? Because that'll be important in a relationship. So you're testing things out before you get into a greater commitment. I just want to encourage that type of mindset in other places, including trying to find a career. So how do we design a prototype? Well, a prototype should have the following. First, we need a goal. Now, the goal should be a verb statement, and it starts with to. Now, for example, in this prototype, since we're going to stick with the idea of being a doctor, we could say a goal could be to learn more about being a medical doctor. Now, a prototype should also have at least one objective. Now, I know that the words goal and objective tend to be used interchangeably, but here I am going to have a very specific definition of an objective. The difference between a goal and objective is an objective should have a deadline, it should be achievable, and it should be modest. That is, we don't want to dream big. And that seems counterintuitive, but keeping our objectives small and achievable is really important if we want to get reliable feedback on a particular job or strategy. If we're so focused on getting to this end goal of being a superstar doctor, we're going to feel a lot of pressure to make the prototype, quote, successful. And as a result, we are not going to take actions that risk that success, even though those exploratory actions might be the very thing that we need to do to learn more about being a doctor. So it's really important that we keep our objectives very, very narrow and very small, so we don't shame ourselves for not achieving these gigantic goals in this short amount of time, which is likely impossible. So let's just keep objectives manageable and small and achievable. So, for example, a good objective could be, for 9 weeks, I will attend the summer research program at UCSF Children's Hospital. Okay, we have a deadline, 9 weeks, and we have an objective that is very achievable and modest. And I should also mention that by the end of the prototype, you should be able to say very clearly if you achieve that objective or not. That is, it's very clear whether we've attended the summer research program at children's hospital, or if we haven't. And that's a difference from a goal. Notice a goal is a little bit more vague and abstract because there are lots of different ways we can learn more about being a medical doctor, but the objective is very measurable and clear, and you can answer that question if you achieved it with a yes or a no. Last thing we need is a budget. And it's not just actually one budget, but it's actually several budgets. We want a money budget. I will spend no more than $100, for example. We need a time budget too. I will spend no more than 5 hours per week. And lastly, we should have a red zone boundary. Now, this boundary, when we create it, is designed to protect ourselves. So when crossed, we need to strongly consider abandoning the prototype. A good red zone boundary protects your physical and mental health. So this aspect of budgeting is really about protecting ourselves and making sure that this prototype doesn't get out of control and risk other aspects of our life that are really important to us. So, for example, if you were in high school, well, you want to protect your academics. We don't want to risk those while we are experimenting with a prototype. So we want to make sure that we create a budget so that, you know, our academics or our family time or our sports or our other activities that we really care about, that they are protected and the prototype doesn't go out of control and really impact those aspects in the negative. So we need budgets. Now, after the prototype has run its course, we assess the results. We ask ourselves what was positive about the prototype and write that down. We also ask ourselves what didn't work for us. What did we learn from the experience? And also, what questions do we still have? You know, at the end of a prototype, it should encourage new questions about the job and other places that we can explore. Now, after the assessment, we then need to make a decision. We can either make adjustments to the prototype and rerun it. And this is called iteration. Maybe we enjoyed the prototype and it encourages us to create a new prototype which has a bigger commitment and a longer runtime. Or we shut the prototype down. Again, shutting a prototype down does not make it a failure. If you feel like you need to shut a prototype down, well, you learned that this course of action just wouldn't have worked for you. And so instead of investing more time and more energy into a path that would have made you unhappy, well, you basically got to cut it off and got to leave early so that you could pursue something that actually works for you. That's a success. So as a prototype example, I'll use myself. Starting Sophos Tutor, the YouTube channel, is a prototype. So the goal I had was to learn more about streaming. Now, I'm a big fan of YouTube. I'm actually a big fan of the more polished, edited YouTube videos, but I'm not much of an editor. So I thought a good medium would be streaming, because I noticed with streaming, the editing is very limited. So I decided I would start out there with streaming. Now, the objectives of this channel is I want to stream twice a week for 1 hour each. And I'm currently doing that every Mondays from 4 to 5 and Wednesdays from 6 to 7. And the second objective is to upload a video every week until June. My idea is to record my stream sessions and then edit them down and turn them into a video so I can build up my library. My budget. My budget is $1,000. Most of that money was spent to buy a MacBook Pro. So everything else just was under about $150, including my whiteboard, the webcam that I have on top, the arm, this microphone, etc. I'm dedicating about 10 hours a week to this project. So 2 hours of it spent streaming, The rest of the time I'm spending editing videos. Red zones. I want to be very careful about the toxicity that is on the internet. So, I'm very aware of things like doxing and, just how vile the comment section can be. So I do want to make sure that I have ways of handling it. And if I can't handle it, then I need to really consider shutting down the prototype. And it's a red zone if the quality of my tutoring suffers. Tutoring is still my bread and butter. It's the way I pay my rent, and it's not something I am willing to compromise. So if I ever sense that my tutoring is starting to suffer, then I'm going to seriously reconsider whether I want to continue streaming. Now, the prototype is still running, obviously, but we could do kind of an initial kind of midway assessment of how the project's going so far. Some positives. I've learned tips on how to better communicate on camera. I have gotten to learn more about this microphone and learning how powerful this microphone is in amplifying my voice. I did grow up as a theater nerd, so I inherently learned how to project. But I realize now with this microphone, I actually don't need to project. So I can speak in a normal, even quiet voice, and I find that that is more effective in communicating through a camera. I also learned how to edit an iMovie, and that's been an education. I'm still pretty basic with my editing skills, but far more than when I started. And it hasn't been as bad as I thought it was. So, hopefully it'll translate to making other movies. I don't know. And as I've said before, I'm building a video library, which is useful as an online tutor. So if there's a concept that I want a student to learn, I can forward them over to a video that I made. Now, we still have some concerns moving forward. It's very grindy. Trying to dedicate 10 hours a week, there are times when you just don't want to do it, or you don't have any ideas for a stream. Or there might not be any people on the stream. That's because it's difficult to build an audience. I think it's for a couple of reasons. Number one, I think people have different issues when it comes to tutoring. It's not like I am doing a video on a video game where the audience is already looking for, Super Mario. So people already know the game and are familiar with it and can talk about it immediately. A lot of issues when it comes to like homework or mathematics are very individual, right? One person might be there because they want to learn about Pythagorean theorem, but another student might have issues involving parallel lines. Is a student who is wanting to answer a question from parallel lines, are they going to wait through another student who is asking a question about Pythagorean theorem? Okay, so that's something I'm having to deal with. Also, I think people aren't accustomed to look for tutoring on YouTube, right? We're used to looking up other things, and if it's educational, we might look up videos for a particular topic, but we might not be attuned that there would be someone who is willing to answer our questions, like a homework hotline. So trying to get people to adjust their behavior is pretty challenging. So what's my decision on this prototype? Well, I don't know. So far, the red zone boundaries haven't been crossed, and so I'm just going to keep letting this prototype run and letting myself learn more about being a streamer. And we'll see at the end of June whether I continue to like doing it, whether I'm going to make adjustments. Who knows? So in conclusion, a prototype is an experiment that provides reliable feedback on applying the skills and interests from your mind map. Your prototype should have a goal, at least one modest and achievable objective, a money budget, a time budget, and a red zone boundary to protect your physical and mental health. Now, in case you have trouble coming up with objectives, some examples of things that you could prototype. You could say that you will join or start a club for whatever your interest is. Maybe you want to join an environmental club or a financial club, or you want to join a choir, or you want to join a theater club. You could also decide to volunteer or intern for a program, right? Those are great ways of being around people who are who have the career that you want to emulate, and so you can ask them questions while you're interning. You could also do a prototype where you're doing something regularly for a period of time. So I will do A every day for B weeks. You could also take a survey. You know, let's say you want to have a project that is designed for, I don't know, a population. Well, you could start by just taking a survey and sampling the opinions from that population, trying to get to know what are their needs so you can best cater that program to suit their needs. Okay? Now, in our next video, we will explore a specific type of prototype that gives you specific type of feedback: networking. Okay? I'll see you in part 4. Thank you so much for watching. Now, if you liked what you saw, please click the thumbs up button below. Also, if you want to watch more of my videos, or you want to catch me on an office hours live stream, please click subscribe to Sophos Tutor.